Hey everyone, I am at the sophomore retreat in this fabulous room. Look at, we have bunk beds. Okay, hey, I just want to, this is going to be a very quick lecture, like about 12 minutes or so. But anyways, I want to talk about Eastern European in the age of absolutism. And what we're essentially going to be doing here, just so you guys can follow along, is we're going to talk about two areas. We're going to talk about Austria and we're going to talk about Prussia. Very important because what we don't have anymore, and both of those areas were part of the Holy Roman Empire, but we don't care about that anymore, do we? Okay, let's go on here. On page 2, before we get this started, we need to talk about peasants. Because remember how we talked about after plague in Western Europe, essentially serfdom disappears. And serfdom, for all practical measures or thoughts, it's really slavery, okay? They are enslaved serfs, which means they can't move on their own. And by the way, I'm on page 2 if you're looking around up here. Okay, there is a restriction on movement. Runaways are hunted down. Okay, and it's unpaid serf labor. But unlike the West, where the peasants actually gain their freedom, in the East they like double down on it. They're like, yeah, we're gonna keep serfdom and nobody can move because we need the manpower. The manpower, everybody. Okay, so serfdom is really reintroduced by princes and landed nobility in places it wasn't, and it's doubled down in places it already was. And the key thing here is, I don't know, I mean, in the worst areas, which would be Russia, it doesn't go away until like the 1860s. Okay, let's talk about the Habsburg family crest. See this double-headed eagle? We're going to see this over and over. It is a sign of authority and kingship, okay, and in Eastern Europe, and we'll see it. There's a German eagle that also looks like this. Okay, we're going to Austria. Go to page 4, everyone, and let's talk about Austria rising in the 17th century. Every single time we've talked about Austria, we've talked about the Holy Roman Emperor because he's always from Austria, and we've talked about how, like Charles V, they're always trying to consolidate everything. Ferdinand II, let's create a German nation, everybody. Let's go to war against everyone. And instead, what they get is complete failure. All right, yeah, the 30 Years' War completely stops any ideas of the King of Austria or the Holy Roman Emperor actually consolidating and making Germany. All right, so let's go through this. A couple little things that we just want to note here. First of all, in Bohemia, of course, the Protestants were essentially wiped out. And what we have here is that old nobility is going to be decimated, particularly in Bohemia. And we have this new nobility. You guys always know new nobility, where they get they're loyal to the king, right? And we get a standing army, which is very, very important. We see this with Louis as well, Louis XIV. Okay, so Austria starts to turn eastward, and they really want to consolidate their lands in the east. So when we look at our map here, no longer is Austria going to be concerned with this craziness up in here, which is the Holy Roman Empire, right? Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to consolidate, and I'm going to turn to red here. They're going to consolidate the areas they already had, Bohemia, Austria, and then later on they're going to take over Hungary. So these are like, oh, look at, I made like a fake heart here. Okay, yeah, so that's really what we need to look at here. Okay, who does this? Oh my God, what is this guy wearing? I mean, come on, hot or not, everybody. That hat. That hat, what can I say? It is outstanding. And the little ruffles and the shoes and the feathers. Yeah, Leopold, you are a strikingly handsome man. Okay, Leopold I is the one who's really going to do this. And the key, it's also why in this area right here, you have Muslims that live there, okay? Bosnia, okay? It's because it was part of the Ottoman Empire, and that's a Muslim empire. Okay, all right, anyways, back where we were, everybody. Go back where we were. Okay, so this Ottoman thing, and essentially what they're going to do is they're going to defeat the Ottomans, and then they're going to consolidate their power. All right, I'm skipping over a couple of kings because that's what we do in this class, but in the end, you're going to get an amazing monarch, a woman, of course, because usually they are, Elizabeth I, Maria Theresa, Catherine the Great, okay? And she is going to really consolidate a lot of stuff with this too. Okay, we have a little problem here, is that eventually what happens is that is that there's no male son. And you have this guy, Charles, who's so worried about what's going to happen with the monarchy and Austria-Bohemia, Hungary. And that he actually comes up with this idea of a pragmatic sanction. He makes all the countries, or he gets all the countries around them to actually sign this, that they are going to acknowledge that his daughter, Maria Theresa, is going to be queen. And that they're not going to split up the country, okay? But truthfully is he dies and immediately Prussia attacks, okay? But we'll get to that a little bit later in the class. But what I want you guys to realize is that, number one, she's amazing. She fights off everybody who comes after her, and her daughter is Marie Antoinette, okay? Lastly, the three areas of Austria, Bohemia, and Hungary. They're not together, okay? They each have their own laws and peoples, okay? They're a union of having one ruler and one foreign policy, but everything else is kind of a little bit different. And there's a lot of different cultures and peoples in this, okay? Slavs, Hungarians, Croats, okay? Czechs, Poles, Italians, Germans, okay? You guys get the idea. This is a multicultural situation. And that's hard to govern, okay? That's hard to govern, and we're going to find that out a little bit later. Okay, all right. Good. Let's continue on. So this area right here that I have up here, the colored areas, this will be Austria. And from here on out, we're going to call it Austria. So very, very similar. So a lot of these guys, after Louis XIV builds his palace, you're going to see a lot of these kings building these huge palaces, up and around. Okay, let's get out of Austria and let's go to another German state. How do we know they're German states? Oh, yeah. They speak German. Okay, good. Just so we're thinking. Brandenburg, Prussia. You cannot make this up. This is a Prussian family crest. Go to page 5, everyone. It has, by the way, the German eagle that we'll see in World War II that the Nazis use, right? But why does it have naked Santa Clauses all over it? I just really don't understand that part of it. Okay, all right, where are we going here? Well, number 1, Prussia and the Austrian Empire. You guys have never heard of this. This has not been something on our radar at all. But if you look at this and this consolidation, you're going to notice that we're starting to get a large consolidated state to the north. The capital of this large established state is a city known as Berlin. And as they became more powerful, they look more and more like Germany. It will be Germany. Okay, and I know that everyone up to this point would have thought it would be Austria, but it's not. Okay, and it's the Hohenzollern family. Okay, and by the way, they're known as the great electors because they get to actually elect the Holy Roman Emperor. Okay, and that's really about it. Okay. But then they also marry really well and they inherit some stuff and they start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, let's go back to our main guy here. Our main guy is this one named Frederick William the Great Elector. Now, you don't necessarily need to know him, but I think as context, he's really important because he is the Great Elector during the 30 Years' War. And Prussia was one of those areas that lost 50% of the people that lived there. Ooh, hot or not? I think the red tights are quite fetching on him. What do you guys think? Okay, let's go on and let's take a look at what we have here. Completely devastated by the 30 Years' War. And there's even a story where Frederick William, as a child, like he's probably 10 or 11 or 12, has to hide out for weeks at a time in the forest, okay, in order to get away from the marauding armies that are going over and back across Prussia. Now, the main thing about Prussia is there's no natural boundary that would prevent an army from coming through. You don't have any mountains or big rivers. I mean, you got a couple of big rivers, so they're pretty easily crossed, and so they didn't really have anything to stop the armies much. So when he actually becomes the Great Elector, in order to make sure they're not going to be invaded again, what he decides to do, like, why not? A big ass army. And I'm telling you, the tax collecting thing, he would send the army out to collect the taxes. But he is going to have the first permanent standing army in this region. And he wants to make it strong enough that no one will ever challenge them. Okay? And if you look at this, efficient, honest, successful, okay? But the paradox is because they have this big, powerful army, no one ever attacked them. They're always at peace. They were also sometimes called like the Sparta of the North. Okay. And this is really what they're going to get here. Now, we're going forward into his grandson, great grandson, something like this. A couple generations, let's go forward to 1740. And then you have a guy who, number one, his father actually gets the title king. And then the guy who comes after him, okay, and by the way, they get the title king during the Peace of Utrecht. But King Frederick William I takes this militarism in this army to a whole new thing. This guy was so into the army, he wore a military uniform his entire life. Okay, he fuses the bureaucracy of the government with militarism. He takes the nobles, which we're going to call Junkers, okay, and he tells them that they are going to be the military highest ranking social class. This is what he does, okay, and he creates separate laws for military and civilians. Okay, now, again, he creates this great big military. He never actually uses it. Why? He doesn't have to. Okay, because it's such a thing of beauty. He didn't want to rid it. His son uses it. This is why we're making it. All right, good. Now, reminders. Whoa, big picture, context. The Peace of Utrecht, by which we've already done, right, ends this war, the Spanish Succession, and preserves peace for 30 years. Louis's grandson, Philip V, can be King of Spain, but the Spanish and French thrones can't unite. England, slave trade. Austria gets Spanish Netherlands. Are you ready? The Elector of Brandenburg becomes King of Prussia. King. Okay, that's where that comes from. Now, let's go context, big picture, everybody. Holy Roman Empire declined. It's gone. Okay, it's still on the map technically. It'll be taken off the map by Napoleon, okay? But the Protestant Reformation is going to leave it completely into 300 separate states, all right? And out of that, we will have 2 states that will be vying for power and control over the areas. They both speak German. They're both German states. One is Austria, the Habsburgs, and the second, new kid on the block, Prussia, the Hohenzollerns, will be the 2 that will do it. Now, we haven't talked about Poland, but why not? Because Mr. Mishu loves Poland. Well, they actually had a constitutional system in which the king shared power with the local diet. But what's going to happen here is because the Polish king is actually elected by the nobles, and they did have a diet, but under the diet, all political decisions had to be unanimous. And when it wasn't unanimous, they had this thing where it was called exploding the diet. I'm not kidding. They really called it exploding the diet, okay? I mean, you can't make that up. Anyways, they never got anything accomplished. And so what ended up happening over time is that Poland was actually vulnerable and they are going to be taken over and split into 3 parts, just like a turkey on Thanksgiving. Russia, Prussia, and Austria are going to take the Polish territory during the 18th century. And this is what the partitions look like. And it's very fast. It's within 3 years, you're going to notice here, they've really split it up into 3 separate sections. Russia takes the eastern part. Austria takes the southern part. Okay, you can see Krakow there in Austria. And last but not least, Prussia is going to take the north and the western sections. Okay? All right. Other big pictures, just so we can keep this in the back of our mind, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire in decline, led by Suleiman the Magnificent, of course. And this is going to be the gradual decline. We call them the sick man of Europe for a reason after this point, in which eventually all we will have left is the country of Turkey. Okay, reminders. Number 1, I was going to have a quiz on Monday, but I'm going to have a quiz on Tuesday. So if someone wants to go up to the board and change it till Tuesday, it's on Western absolutism. A lot of the movie that you're watching on Versailles, and you'll finish it up today, is going to be on in the, like, things that are in the movie are definitely in your quiz. Okay, let me just state that. And then lastly, that's it. Calendar's up. Okay, you guys can check out the entire Unit 3. You know, it's always 3 weeks is what we work in. And there's some dates quizzes coming up. You guys can look at those and study for those as well. But have a good weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday. Oh, we're doing primary sources on Monday, so that might be fun. Okay, Talk with you later.